Welcome back for the last and final class, number 30 of the Academy of Shem and Aver. We are finishing the 30 class cycle. Okay. With that said, let's get a quick rundown of what we've done. We started 30 weeks ago with Torah of Shem. We ventured all through Shem for about 14 or 16 weeks. Then we got into Jethro, and we learned about Jethro being I like to use the word in poor grammar. He was a conversion, and not a convert as in converted. When we say conversion, we're saying that Jethro was eternally converting the falsehood of the world to an appreciation and love of God. That he wasn't settled. He was always searching for more. Jethro was the eternal searcher. So Jethro, when it says that he was a ger, he was Megayer. Ger from the word literally alien or stranger, but loosely translated as convert. So we're learning out from another Noahide, a Ravna, who sold the Temple Mount to King David, who was called a Ger Tzedek. And we find in the Torah, by one of the passages of don't mix milk and meat, don't cook a kid in his mother's milk, the Torah uses the word Ger. And it's interesting because there's no question that it's referring to a Noahide, based on the language of the verse and what the subject matter is. There's no way to interpret it as a convert to Judaism. So we find that the word convert, but with a connotation of conversion, of constantly in the condition of, that the Torah is describing the Noahide in this way. And then we went through the letter of the Rambam for a little while, a little complications over the holidays, and we had some technical difficulties, so we dwelled in the letter of the Rambam. And we came out as soon as last week. We also discussed names for a while. And last week we got into the final chapter of the last wing of this journey in the 30 classes with the Zohar on Noah. The Zohar being I guess you could call it ancient. It's about 2,000-year-old text of the basis of Kabbalah, is from the Zohar, written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He was a rabbi 2,000 years ago, right around the time of the Roman conquest of the land of Israel. And if any of you don't know, what he did was he fled the Roman authorities, and he lived in a cave for, I think, 12 years. And they buried themselves in sand in the cave. And they learned Torah from Elijah the prophet. They composed the book of the Zohar roughly in and out of the cave when they came out. And the Zohar was in hiding until about the year, I don't know, maybe about the year 1000, the Common Era, when the medieval times were going on. So the commentator Rashi was one of the first ones to have the Zohar. They say the Rambam didn't have the Zohar, but by around the year 1400 or so, the Zohar was made known, and it was around. And by the time of the year 1500 to 1600, the Zohar was interpreted largely by a Kabbalist by the name of the Arizal, and he was in the city of Sfat, where I live now, where this class is coming from. And then as the year 1700s went on, the Zohar became a fixture in Torah study through the years of the 1800s. And in the 1900s, they even became fixed within the practical realm of Jewish law, halacha. As there's a very non-Kabbalistic work. I don't know if you've heard of this rabbi, the Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim literally means the desire of life. But that was his nickname. He wrote extensive laws and research on how to speak properly and to eliminate baseless hatred. in his book of daily living, which is called the Mishnah Berurah. So in the Mishnah Berurah, which is a very dry kind of learning, if you're not really into law, yet he also brings in the Zohar many times. So you see that the Zohar has become standardized as an approach to all facets of Judaism and Torah, that it even made its way into the most antithetical text, which is that based on law. So there you have a quick rundown of the last 2,000 years of Jewish history. So now let's continue. Last week we did a piece of the Zohar on Noah based on this concept that we've had for a while about names. And we said that the Gemara, the Talmud, says that the basis that a name has meaning is derived from a concept brought down in the Tractate of Blessings, Masechta Brachas, in the Talmud. It says, Shem, a name causes. They learn it by actually in conjunction with Ruth. And Ruth, her name prophesies that David will come from her. And then we mentioned also in another Zohar that this concept Shem Agarim, name causes, is to be found over there. It can also be interpreted as Shem Agarim, a name is conversion, or a name converts, meaning a name has the ability to take something that is false and to convert it into something that is true. Remember, when we say the word conversion, don't be locked down into the parameter of conversion to Judaism. Take the word convert or conversion in its free definition, aside from context and connotation. That here we're saying the name converts, meaning it has the ability to take something that is, let's just say, not rooted in Torah, and to put it in Torah. That's why the Ramban says that Jethro took upon himself a Hebrew name when learning the Torah amongst the Bnei Israel. That's the conversion. It's the ability to take something that is to be distant from Torah and to become close. The name is conversion. So when Jethro rejected idolatry in the world and he came to Torah and Hashem, it was fitting to have his new name. But then again, some souls don't require the name, and that's where we came down by Noah. Noah was given his eternal name, but the connotation of Noah above and Noah below, that's what needed work. Noah was born with his full final name, but he's constantly growing into his name. For example, when Noah was born, the reason why he was called Noah was to ease the toil of our labor. But it's going to be that towards the end of days, when the generations of Noah are going to keep the Shabbos in their way, so then you're going to find that Shabbos is called menucha, rest, or to ease from labor into entering a state of rest. So that comes from Noah as well. So Noah's not done being Noah. So there's many degrees of which a name works, whether one starts over fresh with a new name, one continues with his old name, and the deciding factor is how one feels about his name. So what we said last week is that the very concept of anything resulting in a name comes from Noah. All issues of naming comes from Noah. And we see the practical side of this in the words of the prophets, that Jeremiah was called Jeremiah because it meant that God was lifted, i.e., out of the Beis Hamikdash, the Holy Temple, because it was being destroyed. And Isaiah represents God will save, because his prophecy speaks about the redemption of the world under his prophecy. So that was where last week we mentioned again how Noah and the name goes together, that Noah is the source that a name causes. The Torah chose to really show through Noah the essence of all the different factors of a name. And we see in comparison, Jacob had to be named Israel by God because Jacob's name was not whole. Jacob required the additional name Israel. So there's many, we said there's many sides to names. Jacob had to be called Israel. Noah remained Noah. Aravna was great by his name Aravna. Jethro required a vav to go from Jether to Jethro. Ruth, who was not Jewish but converted to Judaism, kept her name Ruth the whole way through. So again, we see many different examples of how the name works and what one does and what with the name and how one relates to his name. So that's where we started. That's where we left off last week with the end portion of this Zohar passage. And now this week I want to go over the beginning part to the Zohar. And what this is going to really go over, I think this is going to be a very nice fitting way to end the 30-week cycle of the Academy of Shem, is we should arrive properly to Shem's birth. Right? We've been talking about Shem's life and the ark and going to the Garden of Eden and eating from the tree of life and all these things about Shem. We talked about how Noah gave the tradition over to Shem. But let's talk about the really fine, subtle point from Noah to Shem. And I believe that this Zohar piece really explains it perfectly. The Zohar says like this. We're going to translate the Zohar, and then we're going to go into what these things mean. Rabbi Chia opened with the secret of the verse. Rabbi Chia is a rabbi. He opened up speaking about the secret of the verse, as it says, Noah was a righteous man. A couple things to note. The numerical value of Ish Tzaddik, a righteous man, is 515. That's the value Derech Eretz, the way of the world. So it says that by Rav Hutner, a rabbi who spoke on Hanukkah, the 10 sayings of Bereshis, right? Let there be light, and the word Bereshis in the beginning itself, all the 10 statements that God made in creation are the upholding of the world. And what happens is to really be righteous is to be found righteous within daily life. And Noah was essentially the father of Derech Eretz. Loosely, it means good character traits, but ideally, it's how one should live. I mean, the 7 laws are predicated on the perfection of the workings of creation. And Kabbalah is an intrinsic part of that. As Kabbalah is called Maisa Bereshis, the works of Bereshis. So to be righteous is absolutely imperatively combined with the laws of the world, the 10 statements of creation. So Noah was the righteous man. As he connected to the world, he was called an Ish HaAdamah, a man of the earth, but he was also found righteous in the ways of the world. And the Ramban on the Parsha says it's a greater miracle to work Hashem through creation than to have Hashem supersede creation. And when you look at the words Noach Ish Tzaddik, the end letters of Noah was the righteous man, it actually spells a word. The end letter spells Cheshik, Chet, Shin, Kuf. The Chet of Noach, the Shin of Ish, the Kuf of Tzaddik. Noah was a righteous man. End letter spells Cheshik. And this word Cheshik means attraction. So the Rambam says that the greatest way of knowing God is through Cheshik, through learning Torah until it gives you an attraction. So you see that embedded in Noah's name is this attraction for God. So did Noah know God? Absolutely. Noah walked with God. The verse tells you that clearly. And the initial letters of Noah was a righteous man is the value 141, which when you spell the word malchus or kingship or revelation backwards in opposite letters, meaning the mem of malchus becomes a yud, the lamed becomes a kaf, the vav becomes a pei, and the taf becomes an aleph. Meaning every letter in the Hebrew alphabet has an equal and opposite. For example, A would be Z, B would be why, and so forth. So the beginning letters are the value 141, and that's what happens when you take the kingship or revelation property of the world backwards. It gives you that. So it's hinting that Noah was a righteous man, which is the masculine entity, and he also was perfect, that he contained the feminine qualities of spirituality as well. He was balanced. So the Malchus, or the revelation, is the feminine, and Tzaddik, the righteous one, is the masculine, and he had both. So Noah was the righteous man, and this is compared to the verse, and all of your nation, all of them are righteous. That why does the Torah say that there's righteousness amongst Noah and the Noahites, and righteousness amongst the Jews that stem from Abraham? So both are deemed righteous, and our job today is really to understand why that is. Why both camps are born into righteousness. The quandary posed to him is, since after these generations of Noah they were fit, that it should be to say Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and not Noah was a righteous man. And it says, praiseworthy is Israel, that they are deeply vested in Torah, and they know the ways of the Torah, that because of it they merit the world to come. So the question is, why does the Torah focus on Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and not Noah, who was a righteous man? So that's our first question: is why through the parsha of Noah, why don't we just learn about how great Noah was? Why do we learn about Ham, Japheth, and Shem? Whereas the Torah portion of Lech Lecha is entirely about Abraham. So these are questions. Why? This is a famous thing, that if Noah was righteous in his generation, on the side of merit, and then there's this idea that if Noah would have been in Abraham's generation, he wouldn't have been considered much. Right? This is a controversial topic, one that's been spoken of at length. Our job is now to understand that piece. Okay, so here's the answer. And it's a very nice answer. Does everybody hear the question? Why is Noah not spoken of in terms of his righteousness, to the extent that his sons are spoken more than him? And by Abraham, we learn all about him in the Parsha Lech Lecha, where he goes to Israel, and Abraham's righteousness is easily spoken of. And it's often seen as a controversial topic, but it's not that controversial when we explain it. So the basic premise here, and you know what, I'm going to read the next Zohar piece just to get the next topic flowing, and then we'll go back over it. The next thing is, come and see all of Israel, that there is to them a portion of the world to come. And we ask, what is the reason? I mean, what is the source of merit for the Jewish people? And he says, because they are guarding the covenant of the flesh, the circumcision, that the entire world endures because of this. As it says in the verse, if not for my covenant day and night, the establishment of heaven and earth I will not place. That is to say that by the guarding of the covenant, the circumcision of the flesh in holiness, that it should not become impure to him in illicit behaviors and with immorality. Therefore, Israel, he who guards the covenant, the circumcision of the flesh, since he brought it upon himself, there is to him a portion of the world to come. And not only that Israel is called this because of this they're called righteous. From here we learn that all who guard the covenant that the world endures because of him is to be called a righteous person. And from this we call Joseph righteous, that he guarded the covenant forever, that he refrained from the wife of Potiphar. He merited to be called righteous. And this that it's written, in your nation all of them are righteous. And for this it's explained to us Rabbi Chia, the rabbi of the verse. Noah was a righteous man. That we explained that Noah was the guardian of his covenant in the flesh, therefore endures all of his offspring. And for this we say, rather, these are the generations of Noah, the offspring of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, since they are contingent this in this. So there's two questions here. We have really two questions. The first question is, well, there's actually three questions, or even more. The first question is, why was Noah righteous? Second question is, why are the Jewish people expected to be righteous? And the third question is, why are the Noahides deemed absolutely righteous? Meaning by the Jewish people, they're expected to be righteous, but we don't say the word expected by the Noahide. The Noahide is considered righteous. So the question is why? And the answer to the question is like this. Noah was born circumcised. And being that he was born circumcised, it was testimony that he was to be righteous. And since the fact that Noah was righteous, he lived up to his billing. Now, the born circumcised was a reflection of his name Noah. Remember, we're saying the name causes. So the name of Noah came out as an expression of his righteousness that his body conformed to, in that it was born circumcised. One other quick thing to point out that I forgot to mention. The value of Gematria Ish Tzaddik, the righteous man, we said is the value Derech Eretz, which is proper conduct or the way of righteousness in the world. When you take the word Derech Eretz, which literally means the way of the world, when you take that in its opposite letters, that means the Dalet of Derech, you hear the Dalet, Dalet of Derech, becomes a Kuf. The Reish, the R sounding letter, becomes a Gimel, and every letter in the opposite from the alphabet in Hebrew, it's the Gematria Israel. So you see the hidden dimension of Derech Eretz, of the way of the world, is Israel. And what do we say by Bnei Yisrael? That the literal Bnei Yisrael are the Jewish people that stood at Sinai, but the figurative expression or the allegorical definition of the children of Israel are those that are of Israel. And remember, Noah's name is comparable to Israel as opposed to Jacob, as Israel is the higher spiritual name of Jacob, and Noah is an already higher spiritual name. So before we forget that point. So now, Noah was born circumcised, and what's interesting there is that the Kabbalistic work, the Ba here, which is also written about the time of the Zohar, explains that the body and the name go hand in hand. That the name of a person is a reflection of his body. So Noah was born perfect, essentially. He was born circumcised. So the name of Noah that God put in his mother's mouth to name him Noah was divinely inspired because the inspiration of the name was a reflection of the body. So I don't know her exact thought process, but it could be she saw that he was circumcised, he was born perfect, so she was inspired to give him a perfect name, and out came the name Noah. So Noah was a reflection of what his parents perceived in him. So now we understand that Noah was born circumcised. And by being born circumcised, he was destined to accentuate the most difficult part of all of life, which is basically the commandment to be fruitful and multiply. Carries with it not just the physical act itself, but the maintenance and mastery of life. Right? Life is to be mastered on this level. Thus, what we find is that the total expression of Torah, I mean, if you were to have one expression of the entire Torah, you know the entire Torah, you've done what the Torah demands of man. To the extent that Psalms written by King David, the Midrash says it is entirely a work written to explain the greatness of Noah. What does Tehillim start with saying? Ashrei Ha'ish, praiseworthy is the man. And what King David is talking about as the ultimate expression of righteousness is Noah. So the Torah of Moses essentially is the Torah of Abraham, where King David goes and which is comparable to the 5 books of Moses, the 5 books of Psalms, that King David takes it back to the Torah of Noah. So Noah is the ultimate expression of righteousness. He guards the circumcision of the flesh. He is the master of himself, his flesh, the world, and the 7 laws come from him for that very reason. That he is righteousness in the flesh. There's the 7 laws of Noah are so perfectly in such perfect harmony with the world that Noah mastered the ways of life. So for that he was called righteous, and he made a union in the Noah above. Remember, we're saying there's a name Noah above and a name Noah below. And Noah was Noah below, but there was also the concept of Noah above. This is why he didn't require a new name, because the name of above did not equal the name of below. The name above, as he was great below, he created a combination of perfection above as well. And that union above He made what's called a yichud, a perfection of the world by the manner of a higher intellect. That Noah essentially had a higher intellect that for whatever reason it was inspired to him, he was the mastery of perfection. The only problem was it didn't come from exactly his own labor. There's a concept that Hashem does everything for you the first time, and this is called Yesod, or the foundation, and then Hashem conceals it from you. He puts a covering over it called Orla, it literally means like a foreskin over the foundation, and then the ultimate job is then to remove it by your own power, and thereby earn the rectification of the world. So the fact that Noah had it given to him is not a degradation of Noah at all, because it's never going to happen. It's that level of Hashem giving that over has never happened before. It's just the fact that just shows it, once he achieved that greatness, then the Torah is infinite. It asked for an even greater expression of service of God. Noah understood it to be that he was finished per se, And the interesting conclusion is he wasn't finished and he had to redo the job himself. But that's just showing the extent of his righteousness. That for Hashem to ask you to go that far, it just shows how great Noah really was. So he brought out a level of high intellect called Mochen the Godless, which little Mochen means mentality, and Godless means great. So Noah achieved a union below with his wife, with his family, with the world, with God, and a union above in the Kabbalistic worlds above. And what that did was it created the fruit of redemption. That just like Adam, he destroyed the worlds through eating of the fruits of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that he actually created evil by not eliminating the path of evil. He created a path of evil. That the potential evil in the world became solidified through his sin, whereas Noah did the opposite. Noah took that evil and he made it the path of redemption. So he largely rectified the entire world. Every single evil and potential that Adam had created through his sin, Noah reversed it. He reversed the trend of the world, that the world would ultimately have a destiny to redemption. So for all these reasons, we see that Noah was righteous. And the guarding of the circumcision or of the covenant is really what gave him the power of holiness. And it's interesting because in the Kabbalistic works, they say that the sin of Adam was allegorically the perversion of what Noah was great in. So the thing is in the Torah it says, "Ela toldos Noah." These are the generations of Noah. Now, every time in Torah it says "rather." You might translate it in the Torah you have in front of you at home if you're reading along or in your spare time. The word "these are the." Let me get the Torah out on this just to show you the exact translation. If you look in your Torahs, it says, "Ella toldos Noah." These are the offspring of Noah. Noah was a righteous man. So why does it say these are the generations of Noah? And in Torah literature, the word "these" can also be "rather." Aleph Lamed Hey. And every time you say "rather," it's coming to throw out what came before it. So what is the Torah coming to exclude? Noah himself. Noah was righteous. That's absolutely true. But the revelation that the Torah is teaching is forget about Noah. Noah's done. He saved the world. He brought the world on a collision course to redemption. He saved everything. He is perfectly righteous. Now, forget about the guy. Why should the world forget about Noah? And the answer is because Noah sacrificed himself so that his offspring would live on in his righteousness. That if Noah takes the stage for himself, he's going to overshadow and trump Shem. And Shem's not going to become great. And the whole world will sink into a degradation. And Noah alone will enjoy the fruits of redemption. So that would be defeating the purpose of Noah's greatness. So Noah understood that for what he achieved in righteousness must be suppressed. Just like Shem suppressed his 5 sons in search for Abraham. Just like Abraham suppressed his own seed by sacrificing Isaac. Just like Isaac suppressed Jacob for Esav. Just like Jacob suppressed basically Joseph by having Reuben be the firstborn. There's a precedent. So when Noah suppressed himself, what he did was he allowed Shem to shine. And when Shem suppressed his 5 sons, he allowed Abraham to shine. But more importantly, by Noah, when Noah suppresses his own being and his own righteousness, this is why it says these are the offspring of Noah. These are the offspring that told us that Noah put the world in a status of redemption, and for the rest of time, Noah's righteousness is a given, but it doesn't need to be dwelled on. The Noahides that would emerge from the offspring of Noah, they would be the ones who are the inheritors of Noah's righteousness. And this is why we said the Jewish people are expected to be righteous, but it's the Noahides that come from Noah that inherited righteousness. Now that's like anything with Torah is a blessing and a curse. And there's a power given to the Noahide of righteousness. But now he has to cultivate it and know how to work with it. If the Noahide takes it for granted, then he's taking it for granted. But to work for the Noahide, he's built that he should be able to become righteous. His potential is to be able to go back on par with Noah. The 7 laws of Noah given to the Noahide is the program to basically reiterate Noah, to illuminate the pathways of redemption, to create the righteousness in the world. And ultimately that will lead to a suppression and the fulfillment of offspring. So when the Torah gives a blessing to be fruitful and multiply, the Noahides have the ability to create the fruits of redemption even greater than Noah. And I was reading something interesting about the movie Iron Man. You saw this, the character, the superpower, that he's got this weapon in his hand, that the further he shoots the weapon, the stronger it gets. I was just reading this happenstance on the internet. So the Noahide is very similar. The further the projectile of the Noahide into the future, and by creating Noahides through matrimony, birth, marriage, offspring, the Noahides will only grow stronger in righteousness and the powers of redemption and the strengthening of the 7 laws for the entire world. That's a strengthening of Kabbalah, which is the revelation of God's presence in the world. So the Noahide inherits this righteous gene. The Jewish people come from Mount Sinai, but this tradition started from the offshoot of the Noahide, Abraham. And Abraham was given the commandment of circumcision. He has him, and he passes on through his seed the necessity to recreate Noah. That until one circumcises the flesh, then he has to all the time become aware of the guarding of the covenant. So there's a potential for greatness, but it has to always be reenacted. It's not an inheritance. The inheritance is the practice of becoming righteous. It's a different service of God, to the passing on of the tradition of becoming righteous. I mean, reenacting how Noah became righteous. Whereas the Noahide is born into the world of righteousness. So the Noahide, when he connects to it, he's already there. Then he cultivates it and learns how to live as a righteous person. The Jewish experience is different, and then he has to connect to and find righteousness. And the circumcision is what leads him in that direction. So it's just 2 different wavelengths. So why does it say that Noah and Abraham's generation wouldn't have been considered anything? There's a couple different answers. And the answer is Noah negated himself. Abraham is accentuated because we're not focusing on Noah from the time of Noah onwards. We're focusing on the offspring of Noah. And Abraham is an offspring of Noah. So it's kind of like a misleading fact, but it is a fact. Noah, the Torah says these are rather the offspring of Noah. And this is what the Zohar was going on to explain, is that Noah's seed will become the essence. Noah paved the pathway to redemption. It's the seed and offspring of Noah who will walk the path of redemption. And another example as well, that the circumcision of Abraham only holds up because Noah guarded his own circumcision. So if you take away Noah and you place him in the generation of Abraham, Noah will not show up. Because Noah's place is particular in the time that he lived. That all the future generations are based on Noah. If you remove Noah from where he is and you move him along forward or backward the timeline, it destroys the essence of Noah. Noah was there to be born circumcised, to become righteous, and to hold down the fort. And there's a very simple misconception that the later the generations come, the more righteous we think we are. Right? Today, who Donald Trump is like considered the most righteous guy, right? Or whoever has the most money, Steve Jobs. All these people who really did nothing in the realm of holiness are considered to be the most righteous. It operates that way in the Jewish camp as well. The rabbis of this generation, people look up to more than, let's say, the Rambam. It's one of the weaknesses of the mind. So Abraham was looked to as great because of his circumcision of the flesh. But what people forget is that by the hands of Noah himself, he must remain and hold the ground where he was, as Noah was the original, the source, and the continuing factor of what it is to guard the flesh and keep the covenant of God. So it's easy to look upon later generations as being righteous through the merit of circumcision. But Noah, it was by self-decree. He must remain his ground of where he was. So to displace him and put him in another generation, it's not him. It's just simply not him. That he has his place in time, and that's the path to redemption in him at all times. And again, we see this reiterating pattern that Shem received the Torah from Noah, and Shem did the exact same thing Noah did. Shem held himself out to the point that Shem did not even get a Torah portion in his name, suppressed all 5 sons, so that there should be an Abraham. Abraham then achieved revelation of God. He got the circumcision of the flesh. And what does he do? Sacrifices Isaac, who Isaac we know was sacrificed, we learned last week. He received the name from the world to come. And then Isaac lives on. And then Isaac promotes Esav and not Jacob. And so forth. We see this tradition continuing onwards and onwards. And Noah remained in his place the whole time. So there's 2 ways to express, or 3 ways to express Noah. There's an Aleph, there's the next letter of the alphabet, the Beis, and the rectified Aleph. So when the creation of the world, all 22 letters approached Hashem and asked that the world be created through them. The letter Taf came up and asked Hashem, Emes, truth, is sealed with me. Right, the letter Taf, the last letter, is the last letter of the word Emes, which means truth. And Hashem said, you're great, but I cannot create the world through you, for through you comes the word death. So the next letter, Shin, comes and says, well, I'm true also. This is the alphabet backwards, from Taf to the letter Aleph. And Hashem says, no, through you also we can't do it, because through you, sheker, falsehood, comes into the world. And every letter approaches Hashem, until ultimately the letter Beis, which stands for blessing, comes forward, and Hashem says, I'm creating the world through you. And the idea is that Abraham represents the letter Beis. It stands for the blessing and the kindness, which Abraham was the attribute of kindness. So then, the only letter that's left is the Aleph. And Hashem says, Aleph, why didn't you approach me? And he says, because I saw that you created the world through the Beis. And I knew you wouldn't take it away from him, so I stood my ground. Noah is the Aleph. And Hashem says, Aleph, you are great. The oneness of God will only be expressed through you. As the value of Aleph is one, and Aleph is the first letter of the word Echad, meaning one. And I may have created the Torah through the Beis, Bereshis, in the beginning. But when I speak on Mount Sinai, I will speak through you. Anochi, I am Hashem, your God. And what's interesting is that the Aleph is the intellect that comes into every letter. Right? Every letter starts off with an Aleph because it's silent. So before you speak, you're already addressing the Aleph. This is why they say that the letter Beis in Bereshis points backwards, the tail on the bottom of the letter Beit in Hebrew, to the missing letter Aleph. And Hashem says, all the intellect is through you in every letter. And if you look at a letter Aleph, there's a certain way of writing it, that there's a hidden letter Beis in the Aleph. Now, there's always a fear that the Aleph won't be aroused to approach God. Like the Noahide has this fear. Because he inherited righteousness, he may always be stuck in his righteousness without expressing it. Thus, there's a hidden arousal in the Noahide, in the Aleph, that when he realizes that the blessing is in him, that Beis, he too will begin to reenact the ways of Noah, to connect to Noah as what's a Noahide? B'nai Noah. He'll connect backwards to the righteousness of Noah and keep the covenant. And what's the easiest way for a Noahide to keep the covenant of Noah? Since Noah was born circumcised, he can't re-circumcise that which is circumcised. So remember we said that there's a veil that comes over the circumcision, the flesh over the organ. When the Noahide removes the veil, he removes the barrier so that he tells himself, maybe I'm not righteous. No, you are. Maybe I'm really not going back to Noah. No, you are. So when the Noahide is aroused and motivated to become this righteous like Noah, what he does is he accentuates the letter Beis in the Aleph. He's the blessing with the intellect. He's a true offspring of Noah. To the point that somebody asked me what the proper Hebrew term for Noahide would be. What would you call a proper Noahide? Because Noahide's an English name. So the Zohar seems to explain that B'nai Noah really can be termed in Hebrew, Toldos Noah, the offspring of Noah, which is a little bit different than B'nai Noah. The Toldos Noah, the offspring of Noah, is the path of the offspring that hold the world in a redemptive state forever. And by allegorically becoming one with Noah through one's name, the name causes that in your flesh, in your being, in your actions, you are doing something righteous. Noah's righteousness was from birth. He was perceived to have been born circumcised. So that means every Noahide has something in their flesh, in their actions, in their being that is an expression of their righteousness. And their name either does express that or can be chosen to express that. And by doing so, it's an allegorical fulfillment of bris milah, circumcision of the flesh. Because allegorically, circumcision, or the covenant, is the value of gematria shem and aver. And shem and aver literally means Hebrew name. And milah, circumcision, means word. In the Torah, the Zohar makes a connection between the circumcision of Noah and the circumcision meaning the word. That the word Noah comes with it a certain meaning. The meaning, as we said, is to ease the toil of our labor. The greatness of Noah is in the word of his name. Thus, the fact that Noah was born circumcised and the meaning of his name Noah, the two together are the secret of Noah. So when we put this whole story together, Noah was born circumcised, but yet it's his being. It's the covenant of the flesh of the being. This concept of Noah, he who eases the toil of our labor, which will result in the Noahides of Shabbos in the end of days, keeping the Sabbath in their way, which Noah will become Menucha, the great rest. Noah was the principle of what's called Yesod, the foundation of the world. The Zohar goes on to say, Noah, this is Shabbos. That we learn Shabbos from Noah. Everything about rest in Shabbos comes from Noah. That the Yesod or foundation is the sixth property, but impregnated in it is the seventh, as in the seventh day of the week. There's three aspects of Shem, of name, in Noah. His son is intertwined with his soul, Shem. So there is a Shem within Noah. Noah's ability to have been the primordial Shem. I mean, Noah's job was to realize that Shem was within him. Again, suppressing the seed for himself. That would have been the removal of the veil from himself. To realize that he was born complete. He was born circumcised. And the fact that his name was in him, he was the literal Noah. By those words, the meaning of milah, circumcision, but it literally means a word. It has a double definition. It means circumcision, it means word. Noah is a word. Shem and Aver are a Hebrew name. The Hebrew name is a word. Thus, the covenant of the word of the Hebrew name is the allegorical fulfillment of Shomer HaBris, the guardian of the covenant. Thus, when the Noahide is in the world acting as a righteous Noahide, whether he knows it or not, when he does it with the intention, with the intellect, then he goes back to the righteousness of Noah. And when the Noahide connects back to Noah, and there's the revelation of his righteousness, then the seven are achieved. The seven levels from Yesod, or foundation, into Malchus, kingship, or revelation. He rectifies the world as the world is called this revelation, Malchus. The seven laws at that time become basically fulfilled. And then the Kabbalistic knowledge of God is infused as the seven laws are the laws that correspond to the Teven sayings that hold up creation. So then when you go back and you say the Ish Tzaddik, the righteous man, the value Derech Eretz, now this person gets by in the world. He has all the tools from God to get by. Mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, marriage, kids, the whole blessing comes down. And the reverse value of Derech Eretz, the way of life, becomes Israel. He becomes back to his Sinai revelation where he's included allegorically within Bnei Israel. And then we said Noah is the righteous man, spells the word cheshek, or attraction, desire. That now now we have the basis of his attraction of God. So knowledge of God through Kabbalah comes down naturally through the works of Bereshis, which the Noahide is privy to. And he'll derive the knowledge of the world and through the creation of Bereshis. This is why the circumcision is the 8th quasi-commandment of the offspring of Noah. B'nai Keturah, those are the offspring of Keturah, they kept up the circumcision going back from Abraham. For the Noahide, really, it's a quasi-mitzvah, it's a quasi-commandment. He's already born into righteousness. But the further he goes, either allegorically or even into the literal, and when it becomes the vehicle of fruitful and multiply for generations, to pass on the tradition in the flesh, the same way that Noah passed it on in the flesh to Shem, and Shem passed it on in the flesh to Abraham. The 8th quasi-level of knowledge, circumcision, is there for the Noahide. It's where nature becomes superseded by God. Or when you find God absolutely in nature. It says that Noah found grace in the eyes of God. That Noah made the world rectified in a concealed way. But the grace, chen, stands for chachmas nister, the hidden wisdom. That what Noah brings out, I mean, he's suppressed himself. But in his cocoon that he put himself in, he is an eternal source of the hidden wisdom. And if Shem is the missing element of Torah, Noah is the wisdom to understand. The hidden wisdom is forever within Noah. And Shem was called Malki Tzedek, the righteous king. My king of righteousness. Rearrange the letters, it spells Kamal Tzaddik, like the circumcision or the word or the speaking of the righteous. And that's what Noah did. Noah was the name of the righteous. Noah was the guardian of the flesh of the righteous. And this is why Noah had to build the ark. Noah was destined for a revelation. He was destined for the kingship property called Malchus, the revelation of the Torah in the world. Malchus is like the crown on the king. It's the female property. And when Noah sat in the ark, this was called the bris in the Arun, the Torah within the chest, the revelation of his Torah. So all through the story of Noah, we find expression of how great his righteousness was, the extent of his Torah, and this is an eternal thing. To the point that King David in Psalms, as we said, wrote about the righteousness of what was Noah. But Noah's not. What lives on as an open expression of Noah, Ella told us Noah, these are the generations or offspring of Noah. The Noahide is that righteousness of today. And when the Noahide goes back to Noah, in being in the flesh through his name, in guarding the covenant of Noah, then that righteousness illuminates Torah and God in the world, upon which the prophecy says the knowledge of God will fill the world. And the Noahide is part of that when he realizes that he is the direct inheritor of the righteousness of Noah. And that'll complete the cycle of 30 weeks with a bit about the righteousness of Noah and what the task is of the Noahide before him. To go forward is stronger than to go backwards. And today we welcome and find the righteousness of Noah living on eternally as an illumination of God in the world. Thank you very much. Have a great week.